Hey guys, welcome back to Project Tallhoe. This week, the honeymoon is probably over. We've done all the really big things that show exciting results, cutting apart cars, slapping these two together. Now it's on to some of the drudgery of the real life of putting one of these things together. We've just got to start doing all the micro fitting, getting this piece to that piece, and start attaching them together so that they're stuck permanently. We may not be to the point of trying to fill in all the gaps and fill in all the holes at all, but I've got to be able to anchor the front into the right place and then move the rear around until I can get it where I want it and put in some struts to hold up the back at that level or whatever it is I end up doing. I'm not actually sure how I'm going to achieve that goal yet. But one of the first things that we want to do, I've taken a couple of measurements, and this side sits about 1/8 of an inch lower than that side on the Tahoe chassis. So we're going to make a couple of small adjustments there so we can get these things fitted in at the same height, side to side. And then from there, we're going to make a couple of pin or bolt points so that I can always restore it to the exact same place. So that I make sure once I've decided exactly where it's going to live, that it always comes back to rest there when I have to take the body off. Unfortunately, we're not really very close to permanently attaching these. There's some rust repairs that have got to be taken care of. I made some cuts but left spot welded flanges together. I'm going to remove those so I don't have the extra layers of metal in the way if it's necessary. I've just got to look over all those little details, take care of problems that will be covered. Say if there's an issue in this corner here, I'll want to take care of it before I attach it to the Tahoe, just so that it's not difficult. I'm just ready to go. Everything is good. So we're going to get stuck into that as soon as I put the lift leg back on this side of the Travelall. We took it off when we were test fitting that front end on the weekend. Make sure everything looked good. It did, but now we've got to get that back on there because this body has to be able to come back off. So it looks like what might be keeping me from getting the body quite as low as I want, I'm still 1/4 of an inch different from side to side, might be the lip I left under the windshield. I've been planning to cut that off anyway, but it was kind of part of what was holding up the body, so I hadn't gotten to that yet. But I think it's probably time for me to lift the Travelall up high enough that I can just cut that lip off, see where that gets us. Actually, I might hammer that lip over. Later on, you guys will see why that might be the better decision for me. And I can always hammer it now and cut it off later if I need to. Alright guys, so this little bracket that I was showing you earlier is what I just whipped up. I made up 2 of these, and I've already attached the one to the other side because that side is down exactly where it needs to be. Now what I'm going to do is bring this passenger side of the Travelall up about 1/4 of an inch to get them level across the vehicle. And then this will weld in here, one half of it welding to the Travelall body, the other half welding to the Tahoe. And then I will know when I'm in alignment because I'll be able to get the bolt back in and bolt everything back together. So we're going to go ahead, get these two pieces welded to the body, and get that body totally aligned. Like an idiot, I bolted it all together to hold it in place, and then forgot to unbolt it when I raised this thing, and I just tore it off. Gonna have to do that one again. Idiot. Alright guys, so I fixed that fiasco from yesterday. I now have one of these bolt-in tabs welded on both sides. Just for alignment purposes, is really they're all there for. I've double checked my measurements from a portion of the Tahoe to the same place on the Travelall on both sides. Looks like we're pretty even, so I should be good to go there. So now it's just time to continue working on Travelall body prep that needs to be done before we attach the Travelall to the Tahoe. So to start with, I'm going to fix that hole that I cut into this thing for absolutely no reason. We're going to get going on that and see what comes next. So since this is such a strange shape that I have to fill in this corner, I'm using tape as a template, and it's kind of hard to see. I don't know if you guys can see it at all, but I'm using the old dirty finger trick. It's like rubbing a pencil over something to create a rubbing on paper. You just have a dirty finger and you rub it down the edges like this. Then you end up with a full pattern outlined that way. So let's see if we can get that pulled here and show you guys what I'm talking about. So there, you can't see it super well on the tape, but you can see that outline, and that outline goes all the way up and down. So now I've got a pattern I can follow to cut a shape that should more or less fit in there, and then we'll get this all welded up. So I've basically been running on fumes for the last little while, and I knew I was getting pretty low on welding gas, but it looks like that just ran out completely. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to finish getting this welded in. So we're just going to call it on this part of the project and start moving on to trying to take on some of the other steps that have to be done. And hopefully I can pick up some welding gas tomorrow, and we can just get back into finishing this filling section and any of the other repairs that we've got to do. Well guys, unfortunately, the supplier for welding gas I've always relied on being open on Saturday mornings when it was convenient for me to get over there. Even then it's not convenient. It's about an hour away from where I live. No longer opens on the weekend. So I ran out of gas on Friday night. Haven't been able to do anything about it. So I'm going to try to get a little bit more work done. Show you one of the ideas I have for tying these two bodies together. I'll start building the pieces to do that right now. But unfortunately, looks like we're in for kind of a short video this week. Alright, so what I'm thinking here is I can reuse this outer shell that I cut off just as a strong attachment point. So I've cut it down. It's not perfect, but due to the way this thing is shaped, that's about the best I could do. Up here I probably could have done better. I was just winging it and I probably should have paid more attention. So I'll have to fill in that gap right there in some fashion. And then obviously I've got a plate over the top and all of that fun, but all of that can be figured out. But my basic thought is I will just weld this plate back in where it was to the Tahoe here on the front. And then on the back side, I will weld it to the body of the Travelall here, where those two run into each other. And then that should give me a pretty strong union all the way down. Now, the reason I cut it in half down here is because before I can install the lower half, I have to completely rebuild this corner of the Travelall, where the hinge mount is. I've got this gaping hole right here, plus all of this is so badly rusted it's going to have to be completely rebuilt. So my thought is, when I'm hooking the two together, I will weld in place that upper half, and it will hold everything. That should be really solid just for holding pieces where they need to go. And then down here, I can, once everything is held in place, I can put a few tack welds around the perimeter of the door somewhere in order to make sure the door doesn't move on me. And then I can cut this section out and get in there and really see what's going on in order to replace that whole section. And I have to do that on both sides. Another thing that I'll end up coming back to do, as you can see, I've got a pretty good gap. I can fit my fingers through the gap right there. So I'll also come back on the inside and weld all of that together and plate that in. But the upper half should be good to go now. I'm not going to bother even fitting the lower half yet because this actually bulges out. I don't know if you can tell that very well, but it bulges out pretty significantly because of the rust. So I'm not even going to try fitting that piece until I've got the body locked in place. Locking the body in will also let me remove this post, and I won't have to hold it up on the lift anymore to get it where I want it to be. And then I can also do some repairs. There's some damage behind the post right in here as well. So we'll get all of that taken care of at the same time. We may just end up building a whole new piece for this section. We'll just have to see how that goes. But overall, I think that's going to work out really well. I'm pretty happy with how that just turned out. And honestly, that would even allow me, if I chose to simply leave this in place with the bolt through it. Just leave it there and weld over it and just never even worry about it again. And then we'll just have to figure out touching up all in here. So I'm going to go ahead and fit up the other side as well. Make me the driver's side one of these. Alright guys, so I finished getting this one fitted, ended up fitting a little bit better than the other side, a little happier with it. That's why you always start with the passenger side. Even though this is invisible, if you start with the passenger side, you'll learn how to break it so you can do it right, and then when you do the driver's side, it works out way better. So, here, one-handed fitment is not the easiest thing. But that is the fitment that we have on this upper half. Made an extra slice there that I'll have to weld up, but overall, all of that is quite good. And then again, we just have to figure out how to patch this upper section. So I'm pretty happy with how that's working out. I think that's going to work fantastically. I think that's where we're going to call it for this week. It's not an impressive amount of movement on the Travelall, but running out of gas and not being able to get more really threw a wrench in the whole works. So I am going to pick up some more welding gas tomorrow, and then we can get back to the absolutely necessary repairs that have to be done on this thing before we start attaching the two. Once I get those repairs finished and out of the way, then the next step is just going to be figuring out how to make the different attachments. As you just saw, I have a good idea for how I'm going to secure the front in place where it needs to be. But I need to put a few things all the way down the body, holding the body up, and then before I even do that, I need to figure out exactly what height I'm putting the back at. So I've got to figure out something that I can do back there in order to maybe adjust that height a little bit, get it held in where I think it needs to be, and then pull this thing back out so I can look at it again to make sure that that's the height I actually want it to live at. So really that's the next step still, is just finish up these absolutely necessary repairs on the body before I get started on connecting the two semi-permanently. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Catch you next time.